It's not helpful to hear people say things like, just worry about yourself right now. Everything else will be there when you get back. But it's like, that's the problem. Everything's going to be there when I get back. And I'm just ignoring it.
Everything could be there, but now on fire.
Yeah. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Welcome to Pickles and Vodka. I forgot the name for a second. Which is, of course, a mental health podcast where imperfect people have imperfect conversations. I'm Christina.
And I'm Lauren.
Did you forget your name for a second?
No.
Is there a lag?
Pause? Because I was going to say my connection's kind of shitty again.
Well, I was just about to say that I feel like right now, everyone within a half-mile radius has conspired to make as much noise as possible around me. It's like all of the lawnmowers in the neighborhood started at the same time. All the birds started chirping. The laundry machines underneath me started... Like, someone started honking their car and shouting.
Of course.
While I was sitting down and waiting for you. So if you hear anything, sorry.
I only heard the lawnmower, so.
Okay, good. And here we are, talking down on ourselves again, because that's
Yay!
just... We were just logging on and saying that we're both kind of low energy.
Yep.
Well, we're recording on a Sunday, first of all, which is strange for us. Normally we do Saturday, but I had a really busy weekend.
Yeah, this weekend my goal was to just go off the grid and play video games and hug Pico.
That's a solid plan, honestly.
Yeah.
This week is going to be a little different. As you know, last week we said we were going to put out a call to action for you listeners to tell us how you were doing and if there's anything you wanted us to talk about on this episode. I think trying new things on the podcast is really important to both me and Lauren, and we are trying to constantly find ways to get you guys involved.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I want to improve personally is the social media schedule. Like, I want to make sure we're giving people enough time to respond to these things. Because I feel like our current style is just to throw something up and expect
whatever we think of it or whatever we feel like it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really, I don't know. I haven't figured out the secret yet.
I feel the same way all the time. I look at it, I'm like, I should try and actually do something with that. You know, I could put some effort into this podcast that I do.
I mean, we're both busy living life, though, and this is a hobby for us. And I promise that we'll stop talking about how inadequate we feel as podcast hosts.
Right.
Maybe one of these days.
Yeah.
But so today, I wanted to focus on one particular voicemail we got from our listener, Orion. Teaser alert. Orion has contributed a lot to the podcast in the past, and he sent in a really thoughtful voicemail that covers a lot of different topics. And what I really want to do is just kind of spend this episode talking about that, because I think it could help out a lot of different people. And in the future, I think it would be cool to do episodes like this kind of on a regular basis, you know, like...
Yeah.
If people want to send us in something like this voicemail you're about to hear, and we might spend a whole episode talking about it.
Yeah, if we knew we were doing it, then maybe we could give people, you know, like a couple weeks warning or something. So it's not just like, hey, tomorrow, give us a voicemail. Well,
exactly. That's kind of what we've been doing. And I think if we make it something that's kind of constant rather than limited time offer... Yeah. You know, like you guys can always send us in stuff, but we're figuring it out as we go. Yep. We don't really know what we're doing, but that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm excited about it. I don't know about you.
Me too. No, now I am, now that I'm hearing about this.
Exactly. But first, of course, I do want to hear how your week with your dad went.
So the weekend with my dad was not too bad. I believe that's all because of all the extra people that were around. like just kind of, you know, like dilutes it. So everything's palatable. And I did meet his girlfriend for the first time, and she was pretty cool.
Oh,
so
cute.
You know, that was good. Because if she was terrible, that probably would have made the weekend worse.
I almost said if it was terrible, you probably wouldn't be talking about it on the podcast, but then I remembered that none of them listened.
Yeah, none of my family listens, so I probably would all the more. I would just be like, I gotta tell somebody she's shit. No,
so now we get a glowing
really cool.
review with no prompting, just a glowing review that she'll never hear.
Exactly. And then the dinner thing that we were going to, you know, two of my friends were coming, which that made it even better because then I know that I have people that are, like, as far as my thinking and my opinions on a lot of things, I knew it's kind of like they silently have my back while the rest of my family, doesn't realize it, but are totally like bad-mouthing every single opinion that I hold.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, a lot of people consider their family their support system, which we've talked about you don't really at all.
Yeah.
And it's like you need a support system to deal with your quote-unquote support system.
Yes. Yes, I need a support system to deal with my kind of defective support system.
Exactly. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Support systems come in all shapes and sizes.
And this I felt like was, regardless of how you feel about it, because this is only like secondary to my family where I don't like to get into heavy opinionated topics like political shit too much or anything like that. But it came up with, because my dad also brought my aunt, one of his sisters.
Okay.
And it came up when the three of them were sitting around, and obviously three very heavily conservative people that they were talking about something about an anti-abortion billboard.
Oh, Lord.
And, like, one of them, and I mean, it was something just kind of like, okay, it's the kind of cliched phrase you'd expect, but one of them, just like thought it was the most clever thing ever. And so that's what they were trying to do. I was like, oh, I love that. But then, they have to go into the, I don't remember which one, if it was my dad's girlfriend or the sister. Oh, I think it was my aunt for sure. Just says something, it's like, well, you'd think that everybody would know that, but there's some stupid people out there.
Wait, so they saw a billboard that had an anti-abortion message, and one of them was like, that's really cute and smart. And then
and then referring to people, that would not agree, just was like, oh, well, like some people are total idiots and some people are really stupid. And I'm just kind of thinking, like, everyone that doesn't hold your opinion is not automatically an idiot.
Yeah. Do you remember what the billboard said?
It was, sorry, I just kind of I've got the gist. I got to put together the whole phrase. It was, I've noticed everybody who's pro-abortion has already been born.
Oh my God. Okay, that one is one of my favorites because the response is simple. I don't want to be born. Like, I never asked to be born.
That's what I was thinking, too, when they first started doing something. It was like, everyone that was born didn't ask to be.
I didn't ask to be born, and I'm not noticing a lot of support for people who have been born. So what's up with that?
Like, regardless of what the heavily debated topic had been, the part that really got to me is just automatically, people that don't agree with them is just like, well, we allow a lot of idiots to live in this world. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
It's like, the kids that you want to be born, they get born, and then they grow up to have a differing opinion than you, and they're stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just something, it just doesn't make sense to me.
It's just opinions. It's like, if I found people that say, I love green peppers, and I'm like, I think green peppers taste like laundry detergent, then I'd be like, well, there's a bunch of idiots that like green peppers. What?
I'm trying to think, I'm sure that there's things about which I feel equally passionate and polarizing.
I know, but that was just a tough one to stay quiet.
Yeah. So I know you went to the dinner. Like, it sounds like a really stressful environment for sure, but then, you're at an event that revolves around food. You have an eating disorder. Like, I don't know. These are situations that we have to deal with constantly, and I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah, and I have a really, really good, I've learned over the years, ability to basically self-preservation, I feel like.
Continue.
It's just kind of like anything, that might be an awkward situation in reference, to mental health things, working against it, anything like that. I feel like I am able to just compartmentalize it and totally put it aside, as well as like 90% of the expected anxiety, all in the name of being in front of, someone like my dad, just being like, everything's fine.
Yeah. I think those types of situations, you could call that being quote unquote high functioning.
Yes.
But I think...
Perfect.
I mean, anyone who's dealt with mental illness as long as we have has most likely learned to compartmentalize that way and kind of appear normal on the outside, which actually ties into the voicemail we're going to play so well.
Oh, cool. great.
Yeah, but I think it's important to remember that that doesn't mean you're less valid just because you're able, like you were talking about last week, how you feel like you haven't had any like big health emergencies that have put your life on hold. You feel like you're not as valid as maybe people who have had those experiences. And I mean, in my mind, when I hear about people compartmentalizing their problems, I just think like, when is it all going to blow up? Because with me, it always finds a way to blow up. And most of the time, people had an idea something was going on anyway.
Yes. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Tangent.
Yay!
Kind of.
Kind of. You sort of were bringing it around.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so then after they're all gone, then I had to drop my car off to finally get fixed. And on the estimate, they'd said 3 days for repairs. And I thought, you know, like maybe throughout the end of the week would be worst case. But when my insurance appraised the car, they believed that we would only have to replace the rear door, not both doors. The garage thought we'd have to replace both doors.
Why?
Guess what? They have to replace both doors.
Why?
Just like
you
the
only
garage
scratched
said.
one.
Yeah, but it kind of like starts right at the front door, and when I open the door, I see it like it actually bent a little part of the frame.
Oh, Lord. But you'll get it back before you go to treatment, right?
Yeah. Like now they're thinking by the end of next week.
One problem at a time. The pieces are slowly coming together.
And speaking of treatment, on Wednesday I had, because it was going to be over a month since the last time I did an assessment, so they wanted to redo it. So I had that on Wednesday.
Oh my God. Wait, so they assessed you that one time where they kind of caught you by surprise in your car?
Yeah.
Oh, that was what, a few weeks ago?
That was like 6 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, because you didn't talk about it right away when it happened.
Yeah.
So how did this one go?
So this one was pretty much the same. I mean, it was more just like time consuming and going through the same things.
Like, why give you a second one?
In case things have changed.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. In case you miraculously got cured in between then and now. Just kidding, guys. I don't need to go. But, like, do you have an updated timeline now?
Yeah, so now at least I know, like, I could tell them, like, yeah, as soon as, you know, we get everything else done, then this is the plan. I'm not just kind of sitting on my thumbs.
Yeah, you're not just twiddling your thumbs.
Mixing metaphors.
Well, I mean, I just asked because I'm thinking about, like, what the podcast is going to look like over the next few weeks, you know?
Yeah. I mean, my guess would be at least a week and a half, probably no more than 3 weeks is how long.
Okay.
Until, hooray.
You listeners will get updates in real time, along with me. You know, it's a roller coaster ride that none of us signed up for, but we're here. And I think like it's a good thing, honestly. I don't know. Is there any part of you that's a little bit excited to just get away?
I don't know, because I feel like, I mean, I'll just be thinking about like things that I'm concerned about, like how's my job doing? How are my animals doing?
Yeah. I mean, that's natural to worry about that stuff. And it's not helpful to hear people say things like, just worry about yourself right now. Everything else will be there when you get back. But it's like, that's the problem. Everything's going to be there when I get back. And I'm just ignoring it.
Everything could be there, but now on fire.
Yeah. In future weeks, I'm sure we'll talk about treatment more. We had a request to talk more about our experiences and like the pros and cons of treatment. And that's a whole episode.
Yeah.
That is becoming increasingly relevant. So maybe in the next few weeks we'll do that. But I forgot where I was going with that.
How are you at? We just have talked about me too long.
Scatterbrained as fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime my schedule is thrown off, it's hard for me to adjust. Like, so yesterday I had a birthday party for my sister-in-law at a brewery. And I've been sober for 3 years. But I used to love going to breweries. Like, I am totally a beer snob. I was all about, like, really strong IPAs and, like, stouts and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so it was my first time going to a brewery since getting sober. And I don't know, but it was kind of boring.
Yeah.
But also kind of nostalgic in a way that I'm not sure is helpful. Like, just being around the smell of beer just kind of awoken in me something that I haven't felt in a while. Like, remembering all of the times that I've had with friends at breweries, and then I started thinking, oh man, I'm never going to be able to socialize again in that way without this. And like, then I started feeling really bitter, like, why can't I have beer and everyone else can? And then I started thinking like, what if someday I was able to? And then it's like, no, don't be an idiot.
Right.
And I don't know. It's just like all of these unnecessary mental exercises. And so I just sat there and vaped. And
yeah.
I mean, it was fun. I had the best Beyond Burger I've ever had in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was worth it. No, it was worth it to see everyone. I'm feeling really socially exhausted right now.
I have been watching on Amazon Prime that Daisy Jones show.
Oh, yeah, I've seen ads for that.
I decided to give it a try, and I realized, like, oh, this is pretty good, actually, because, having done the whole band thing, I just see, like, obviously they're on a higher level in the show, but just seeing to a different degree, like, oh yeah, I know that personality. Oh yeah, I felt like that part in the band. But it's done as a kind of, like documentary. They're interviewing everyone years later. And for some reason, I just really felt like you would get a kick out of, they're asking one of the guys, about like some crazy times, and, they're all doing things, and the story he's telling, like all wasted, dropping acid and stuff like that. And he just kind of like pauses at a point of the story and just kind of smiles and is like, I miss drugs.
Not me every hour of every day. It's like, I know that there were so many bad things attached to using, but I still miss it. Mm-hmm. I think that's natural. Just like I miss being bulimic sometimes.
Fair.
When I was about to go to treatment, when I was in your shoes, I started missing it even before I'd gone to treatment because I knew I was about to lose it.
Yeah. Anything that you have developed as a coping skill like that, even if it's not a positive one.
Sorry, there was a car just dragging its bumper outside down my street as we talk about cars and repairs. Yep. Why don't we play Orion's voicemail now?
Why don't we do that?
It's been enough time of us talking about our problems, although this voicemail will unlock a lot more.
Problems,
discussions, enlightenment.
Okay. I don't need more problems.
Crying, laughing, the whole shebang.
Great.
Good morning, Pickles and Vodka hosts. Okay, imagine if one of you was named Pickles and the other was Vodka. That would be crazy. Anyway, what's going on with me? You ask? Well, I got thinking about it. I've sorted my current goings-on into about 3 general areas that for today I'm calling the good, the bad, and the hopeful. Although I abide by the idea that there's no binary good or bad in life, but for today, just to give it some structure. So the good is that I'm remarkably adaptable to change, because in the last few months, I have moved out on my own to a new apartment in a new city, living by myself. I started 2 new jobs that are great, and I'm doing great at them. I'm able to be volunteering more often, meet new people, and also enjoy doing things alone more that I didn't think was worth the time beforehand. So I'm also like trying out roller derby again and working out. I'm eating good meals. I'm watching real good movies. I am not restricting. I'm not getting drunk. I'm sleeping better. I'm reading books, making a lot of art. I'm keeping myself going. I'm really showing up for myself, even when it's hard. Which brings us to the bad, where it's a struggle to want to be normal. Like many times I'll be walking home at the end of a long work day, and I can feel half my heart out there, like present, reflecting on gratitude and contentment, and simultaneously inside wanting to scream and scream and scream and scream and scream until I explode because I'm in so much pain and that I can't not feel right now. Like in the most acute distress and being okay at the same time and just continuing on because I can hold these 2 truths at once and believe that I will pass through this because feelings are not my enemy. And all these feelings are just me at the end of the day, and they will pass through me. And instead of shutting out my own thoughts, I am increasingly comfortable in my own mind. And I appreciate peace now and giving myself peace when I need it, giving myself permission to create peace and feel it despite my destructive urgencies and tendencies towards despair. And yeah, sometimes I wish I was sicker. It's hard work to be well and to be normal. It is honest hard work, we know. So the hopeful is remembering that things took time to get this good. It took a billion tiny little baby bug steps to be living my smallest and most basic dreams. So like I'm at the baseline stable happiness every day. I feel like I actually have the option to be happy more days than not, which is incredible. Despite not always feeling worthy of contentment, not always feeling like I'll be strong enough to live through another day without somehow fucking all this up, not letting myself feel proud of myself. And feeling proud of myself is the most profoundly satisfying experience. It really is. Like I yearn for validation in so many other ways, just making myself busy looking for that affirmation. But it's like drinking water when I'm hungry for food. Like I just need to give myself permission to feel proud and reflect on how far my efforts have gotten me and how grateful I am for all of the help that I have received to get myself here. Honestly, I am afraid of so many things, but I know that I am no longer interested in making my life as small as possible, or feeling the need to make my life so big that I can't hold it together with my own hands. And I know that the general sense of constant wrongness might persist, might for the rest of my life, but I can be okay anyway. What we practice, we become. And I am practicing being my best self, accepting the best I can do, or the best that happens, accepting what comes my way, remembering that all the good things matter. Just releasing expectations, remembering good things matter, remembering that I am better than I was, and I will be better than I am. And I believe that's a possible outcome for everybody. And I hope we all keep getting better, because there's a lot of good out there. There's a lot to be grateful for, and I'm grateful for so much in my life right now. And I'm always happy to hear your voices too.
So, you would be vodka, and I'm pickles?
I could actually go either way.
Honestly, yeah, me too. Oh, thank you so much, Orion, as always, for the voicemail. I feel like it was overwhelmingly positive, which God knows we need more of that on this show. But also, he brings up a lot of struggles that we can all relate to, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
First impressions, right off the bat, what could you relate to the most?
He said he was putting it into like 3 general categories, and the overarching theme to each one, in the good, the first thing was adaptable. And I was like, yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think we need to take a moment to just congratulate him on all of his accomplishments. Like, holy shit, you're doing so good. We're really proud of you.
Well, and that was part of it, too, is, describing the stuff that he's been through in the last couple of weeks, of months. And that really made me realize, like, oh, yeah, I can connect in all those ways, because I have just packed up and moved, like, a couple times. You've done the same thing.
Yeah, moving is a special kind of hell that I think you immediately make yourself forget once you've completed it.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I feel like both of us have the kind of experience where it's not, just like, oh yeah, I knew I was going to move and I found my new job and I got my old one all set up and I got my movers all set and everything like that. No, you and I both did things where it's like, well, gotta move.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take off.
Well, also, not only is moving a big change in and of itself, but once you move, you have to keep taking care of yourself and continuing the momentum. You got to keep the momentum going, like in the case of Orion, he moved to a totally new place And he didn't stop once he moved. Like, he could have just
Yeah.
moved into his house and then been like, okay, I did enough. But no, he kept going. He kept, like, getting into roller derby and, like, focusing on working out in a healthy way and, like, his diet and all this stuff. And it's just really impressive.
Yeah, and I think that's where, sometimes people I feel like think if they are like planning a move, planning to, like totally relocate or something like that, then they think that that's going to just kind of like trigger, like that's the change that needs to happen. And it's kind of like, well, it might, but you are still going to be you. You can't think like I'm somewhere else and suddenly everything will magically fall into place and give me the right push and everything will be great. It's kind of like you still got to keep doing the work.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've fallen into that trap countless times. I've moved locations like 5 or 6 times since leaving the house at 18, and every time maybe I was able to coast by for a little bit, but my old problems always caught up with me. Shocker.
Yeah, I think we both mentioned before, how many new places have I moved in and walked in and said like, okay, no eating disorder behaviors are going to happen in this apartment.
Yep.
Until they do.
Until they do. I haven't purged in this apartment yet, and I'm really proud of that, but also you never want to say never.
No, then it feels like, did I just set a time bomb?
Exactly.
But no, that is great.
Yeah. I really love the way he focuses on the dichotomy between like feeling hopeful and just feeling, he used the word bad, but I think, just trying to reconcile the fact that your life is going well and you are making a lot of positive changes, but being unable to escape that core sense of dread and hopelessness and feeling like for me, I'm always worried that I'm not passing as normal enough.
Yeah.
And he used that word normal a lot. And honestly, it ties into my experience this weekend. Like, whenever I am in situations where I'm really social, I always end up feeling like I'm sitting on the edge of a room and everyone else is just in the middle dancing. And I'm just, like, watching them like they're aliens. And I don't know what to do. And it's like I'm paralyzed because if I make any action, I'm worried everyone's going to be looking at me. But when I don't make any action, I'm like, how hard is it? Just be normal.
Yeah, and then, I don't know, I wonder, like, does anyone else kind of, like, feel that way? Or is this just natural for them and I'm the weirdo?
Oh, I think the fact is most people feel that way, but not everyone lets it debilitate them as much, I think. Or,
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like sometimes I struggle with it more than most people, and the effect of that is isolating myself even more.
Yeah, and I would imagine like everybody that is feeling that way kind of thinks the same way. Is like, this is sort of odd, and like I don't think that this is a normal way of viewing the world or something like that. So then we don't talk about it because everyone thinks like it's kind of shameful. Really, like you said, I bet a lot of people feel that way. I
bet everyone is just floating around with this acute pain inside of them. And
I'm sorry, I just looked back and Meatball had grabbed my stair railing and was actually hanging a few inches off the ground on it. He's like doing pull-ups over here.
Someone wants some attention.
Okay, carry on.
Back to acute pain.
Yes. Not acute pain, which Meatball is.
Meatball is acute pain. But no, I mean, it does take a lot of work to be well.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not really there yet. We're trying.
Yeah, and that I really related to as well when he was talking about how it's like, I don't need to feel like I just have to get so bad or, like I should just be falling apart because it's all too much or whatever, however it was put.
Yeah, he talks about like the desire to feel sicker. Which I like that he included that.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked about that a lot, but I don't know how much attention we've given it.
If you're a normie listening to this, maybe you're thinking, why would you want to be sicker when your life is going well? Like, why would you even think about that? Can you give any insight?
Yeah. I think like a lot of us that have dealt with like certain mental health issues for a long time and maybe not always like known that was it. You just kind of know that like something feels wrong, even though no one can see that anything's wrong. No one says that anything is wrong. No one can point to a reason, but you just like know in like every cell of your body that is just like, but something is wrong, and why can't you name it? And then when you finally do, then it's just sort of like, yeah, that is your outlet, that is your release, and it's just kind of like, I have to be so terrible at this because that would explain why I feel so shitty.
Yeah. I mean, that goes along with validation, which he mentioned is like being your own source of validation, which is really hard when you're trying to validate yourself in healthy ways, because in the past, the way you validated feeling the way you did, like you said, was by hurting yourself or numbing yourself or whatever, because it feels right. Because like your brain is so wrong, the world is so wrong. How can you possibly pretend everything's okay or try to be okay? It sucks. And I mean, it's kind of like the misery is your baseline. I wrote down that word baseline because it's something that gets mentioned in therapy a lot, you know?
Okay.
Like you have to find your healthy baseline, which I guess that just means like, what is the level of existence that you want to be normal? Like, what do you want to be the new normal? And I don't know how to answer that, but I was thinking like, what is my baseline right now? Like I mentioned in previous episodes, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, I feel a lot of anxiety, like that something bad is going to happen. And so that anxiety is my baseline right now. I just approach every situation with an air of caution. Like if I'm meeting someone new, how is this person going to take advantage of me or hurt me? Or how is this person going to reject me? You know, if I'm driving to the grocery store, I'm like, okay, how is my car going to kill me? Or how is this person how am I going to inconvenience the people around me, you know, or vice versa. And it's just a really exhausting way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
I also wrote down notes about feeling like everything is constantly wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of talked about that when talking about anxiety, but I think it can apply to a lot of other mental illnesses as well, or just not even being mentally ill, just being a human.
Yeah, and that even like circles around to, I feel like, what we were talking about before, just feeling like if you know something is wrong, then you have to have a reason for it.
What do you mean by that?
Just kind of like your overall like body feelings are just like something is wrong, but there's no reason. You're just like, there is a reason. I just have to find it.
I'm trying to understand. Are you talking about like in the feeling that something's wrong, but you don't have a concrete evidence for it?
Yeah, or that you don't have something you can specifically turn to and name.
I feel like that's everything, though. Like, I feel like that's just the experience of living with anxiety, is just feeling like you're crazy because you don't have a reason for it in many cases.
Yeah, not even anxiety. I would guess, we've just turned it into like mental illness in general.
Yeah.
Just feeling like...
Which one do we narrow down to this time?
Right. But yeah, it is just kind of like an overarching fear that it's like, I'm crazy, like crazy.
I wrote down in really big letters, what is the point?
See, now that's my baseline. When you were saying, you know, like anxiety is your baseline, mine is more like, I feel like just a low-grade depression. And, you know, like sometimes it gets worse and sometimes it gets a little better. But like baseline is just feeling like, I don't really understand why I'm doing any of this. I don't think anyone cares.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about the podcast most of the time. To be honest, it's just like, who cares? You know, who cares? Why? What are we even talking about? Why do we do this? And
I care.
I know. It's just, it's like, he talks about finding the stuff that's important and living for that. But it's like, what if you do know what's important, but it's not enough?
Yeah, because then I don't know, like, if I'm feeling like there's no point and what does it matter and who cares, then sometimes I go into wondering, like, what would I have to be doing? What would I have to have accomplished to feel like now my life has purpose? Just like,
honestly, that's a great question. Like, what would it take? And I think I don't like the answer, because the answer is like, it won't take anything extra. Like, you already have it. It's just a matter of accessing it and like being grateful. He used the word grateful a lot.
Yeah, we didn't quite get there, but I felt like he was kind of like alluding to something that I feel like I can't usually say, because everybody has gotten into like gratitude journals are a thing, and people writing down all kind of stuff like 3 things that I'm thankful for every day. I just feel like that picked up a lot of steam and got really popular, and I realized I hate that stuff. I don't want to be told to think of 3 things I'm thankful for every day. That sounds to me as hokey as people saying, look in the mirror every day and say, I like myself.
Oh, God. Yeah. I don't know. I've tried to do that stuff in the past. It started off as mandatory in treatment, and then it ended up being as an exercise.
Maybe that's why I kind of don't like it, because for some of us, it is a thing that kind of got forced. Everybody do this. Everyone write down something you're grateful for. We'll go around the room and share them. And it's if you've had it forced on you like that, it's different than someone that's just kind of this would be a nice thing to do.
I tried to do it every day for a while, and it didn't really last. Mm-hmm. For me, it helps because it kind of forces me to be in the moment. It's hard for me to come up with 5 things I'm grateful for. It's really fucking hard. And so if I know that I'm going to write down a list throughout the whole day, I'll be thinking of, okay, what can I put on the list? And it kind of puts me in a mindset of okay, what should I be grateful for right now? And then I think about it and I justify it, and then I kind of feel grateful sometimes.
Okay. I can see that.
I haven't been really good at it lately. But yeah, I mean, we talked about the good with Orion. We talked about the bad a lot. Mm-hmm. And now we've reached being hopeful.
Yeah.
Which is really hard for us. And so we talk about toxic positivity before.
Yeah.
And I think in my mind, it's hard to talk about this stuff because I'm depressed, and I just automatically assume anything good I say is just toxic positivity that I've parroted back from society that values toxic positivity. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel genuine. But with that said, Orion's voicemail was very genuine. There was nothing fake about what he was saying. And I guess I'm jealous of his ability to see that.
Well, I am interested because I was thinking of something... one of the very first things that he said, just realizing that things took time. And I mean, first of all, that's absolutely true. When you're looking back, then it can seem this got better. So it feels now looking back like it was a quick fix, but you realize actually it was not. It was long and it was painful, and I finally got somewhere better.
Dude, yeah. I mean, look at us now. We're still struggling, but I mean, you have your own apartment, you have 2 pets, and did you ever think you would even be in a situation where you would be thinking about going back to treatment?
I was hoping not.
Well, yeah. But you don't want to be, but it is a resource that you have access to, and the fact, I know.
There was a lot of years where that wouldn't have even been an option.
Or it wouldn't have been an option, or you wouldn't have, even since meeting you, I feel like there's been a lot of times where you wouldn't have considered it. And so I think you're at the point right now where you're you are changing, or you're about to give yourself an opportunity to change. And you're in the slog of it right now.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I was also thinking something that I can look back on, and I both am curious and kind of excited because you will be starting to go on this sort of journey if it's the same as me, which is... we have a couple of younger people in my office that, are late 20s. And so we've got a lot of 30th birthdays coming up. And people in the office were talking about that, because we always do things for everyone's birthday. They're just oh, we're going to have to really, rag them about that, turning 30. And that's what, one of the women said about one of the guys that's turning 30. She's we'll have to, decorate a bunch of black balloons for his office and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, this is 30. Guys, people do, I feel at the end of your 20s, people make it seem, oh my God, 30, you're going to be so old. But then I remembered getting closer to 40 and realizing that it's everyone says that, but tell me whose 20s were better than their 30s.
Exactly.
That's very rare. And I think people don't think of it that way, because a lot of people are starting to kind of get their life together and feel good about that, say, at 27. So they're thinking of the
Maybe.
end of their 20s, and they're like, oh no, now I'm going to be 30. But you forget that I'd say the majority of people, like at least 20 to 25, was probably awful.
Yeah. Or if not awful, at least a lot
You're
of
probably
work.
so fucked up, and yeah. And yeah, nothing was working for you. Like there's probably so much trouble going on. It probably was the most stressful time, but you think like, because the end maybe ended up okay. It's like, oh, my 20s are so great. Now I'm going to be old. But yeah, so that's something I realized, and I was like, oh, you seem on obviously a much better path than you started your 20s.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing you getting through, like, just kind of like getting further into it and realizing, you know, maybe at like 35, that's like, oh my God, my 30s have been so much better. And it's just,
I mean, they already
that's kind of a great
been.
moment.
It is
Yeah.
a great moment. Like, you could not pay me to relive my 20s again. I didn't even think I was going to make it to 30, to be completely honest. Like, and, you know, 30 has been rough, but the challenges that I've been facing at 30 are so much more manageable than the problems that I was facing in my 20s. And, like, I am at a point where I can kind of look back and see how much I've gotten myself through. And, of course, I didn't do it alone. I had a lot of support. Like, Orion talks about that, too, just, like, accepting the help around you and not having to go through this alone, this insane journey of life.
Yeah, because definitely if you say, you know, like, oh, would you like to go back sometime in your 20s, then, you know, I might think immediately like, oh, yes, but then I would have to add an additional caveat to that it's like, but none of my 20s before 28, because those all sucked.
Oh my God, yeah. I want to read a line that he wrote that I just love, which is talking about making your life too small or too big to hold on to with your own hands. And I think if there's one thing in my 20s, oh my God, yeah. Talking about 20s, I feel like I was initially trying to make my life too big because that's what society had told me, is that my 20s was going to be full of self-discovery and fulfillment and finding your chosen family and finding your passion and all this stuff. And of course, that's too much for anyone, but especially for someone like me who had come from a really sheltered environment and wasn't really equipped with basic life skills. I was set to fail from the start. And so my reaction to that was to make my life as small as possible because it was just way more manageable.
Yeah, I feel like both of us had different ways in which, you know, like we suddenly like became adults and were thrust into the adult world, but there was like a lot in those years before that we had missed, and you kind of had to like make up a lot of ground first.
Oh my God, yeah. It's like when I think of those years, it's kind of a blur, but I think I am able to recognize the good as well as the bad. But I don't think I was grateful enough for the good when I was in it. Like, I've talked about before, like, I just turned 30 last year, and I feel like I am kind of not reliving my 20s, but I have a chance to live like I wanted to in my 20s. You know, like, I feel like I'm kind of starting over in a way. And one thing that I didn't do enough of in my 20s, I think, is feel grateful for, like, the good times. I think I was so focused on making my life so small, and, like, my whole life revolved around mental illness for so long. And, I mean, it kind of still does, low-key. Like, I'm always talking about it on this podcast. But it's taken on a different tone, I think. And, I mean, if you go back and listen to all the episodes of this podcast, you can see how much I've changed. Even since Lauren's come on, you can see, I think, how much your life has changed. It's a really weird thing. Life is weird.
Life is weird.
What were you about to say?
I feel like I have kind of a different, interesting sort of part of my life to make up, because what I feel like in what I'm learning about was missing is that, you know, like I was a kid, baby, toddler stuff all went normal, and then around maybe, you know, like 5 or 6, then suddenly I was asked to basically be an adult. So when I'm like kind of like finding the catch-up spot of my life, that it's like, well, it's sort of ages 8 to 18-ish, you know, those whole like developing, where you're kind of like developing yourself.
Or
so
you're being developed. Like at that point, I feel like you're not even developing yourself. Your environment is developing you.
Yeah, it's kind of like of its own accord. Your personality is developing. It's not you're trying to develop this part of it. It's just like it's happening.
It's happening to you. Life is happening to you fast at in that span of ages. And then, yeah, once it happens, it's done. And you kind of, in many ways, your ways are set.
Like our Inside Out review that we just did.
Yeah.
It's kind of, yeah, but it's like, I missed that whole part. Someone just picked me up and said, boom, have to be an adult now.
Yeah. I mean, I had 3 younger siblings by the time I was 5.
Yeah.
And I was already doing like chores and stuff. And like that whole span of years is kind of a blur. Because, yeah, I was being responsible and being an adult. You were talking about people who look back fondly on their 20s. I can't relate to that at all, honestly, not just because of the trauma, but because I never was able to be carefree and adventurous in a way that other people in their 20s were. Like, even in high school wasn't enjoyable for me. I didn't have friends. Like, and then college, it wasn't much different. I think a lot of my like substance abuse issues and stuff also stem from the fact that I was trying to make up for my wild, carefree days that I never got.
Yeah.
Who cares, though? Like, people don't all grow up the same way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just dropping the ball today.
Oh, it's not like you're going through anything that might distract you. I would say your life is pretty small right now, but not in a bad way. It's just you're having to focus on one big part that's kind of taken over everything. And it's harder to put energy into other things. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, even the stuff I feel like I'm relating it all in my head if I'm not saying it, because like even what I was just talking about then, saying like, oh, I feel like I missed this like big chunk of developing years, and it was just kind of like playing in my head like, oh, probably that's why I'm like so afraid to let go of the control of everything in my life to say that I can just, go off to the side here and just escape all of these things that are going on right now. It's like, no, I can't do that, because that's the part where you just sort of learn to be you, and I am afraid of that because I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, it's a scary prospect to think about discovering yourself.
Yeah, and it feels when you are leaving, like I'm leaving my job, I'm leaving my apartment, I'm leaving all the things I'm responsible for, all my responsibility. That's where it almost feels like asking me to go back and say like, yeah, this time when you were supposed to not have all these adult responsibilities, we're going to set up that kind of environment for you here. It's like, no, but I'm the adult. I'm the responsible one. Don't make me.
Yeah, you might have to just like play along for a while in your own self-interest,
Yeah.
Compartmentalizing.
We talked about this a little bit actually in my last therapy session, where she was like, I would give you the assignment to, basically like get written up for like a behavior, not like an eating disorder behavior. I know people talk about that like as behaviors, but basically as like causing trouble.
Yeah.
It's like I would give you that assignment
to get written up.
Yeah, like make some trouble, cause a ruckus, be a shit starter.
I kind of liked that. I literally, like, when I was in treatment, I wrote a lot about how easy it was. Like, just, it was so easy for me to fall into line and eat my fucking food and show up to groups, because I like to follow the rules and I like structure.
Exactly.
But that can also work against you, because you kind of just not waste the opportunity. You don't get to the deeper issues.
Yeah, it's the same thing that we've talked about a few times now, being, adaptable, like Orion said, or, like however I put it earlier. In an eating disorder treatment facility, there's going to be people that are like really struggling with, like a particular food, a particular meal. They've assigned some, like meaning to it, and they can't get past it. And, they're freaking out like, I can't do this. And I never felt that way, because I always felt like, well, when I get out, then I know I can do whatever I want. Like I can get through anything. Doesn't matter if this is hard. It's just sticking something in your mouth and chewing, because that's what I'm supposed to do.
But it's so different once you get out of treatment. It suddenly is no longer just putting things in your mouth and chewing.
Exactly. Because there it's doing it because I am people pleasing. It's not doing it because I believe in it at all.
Yeah, but at least like teaching yourself to go through the physical motions is better than nothing. And then at least maybe once you get that part down, you can start dealing with, okay, why is this so hard for me to do outside treatment?
Exactly. And that's what I guess is kind of, like the this time hoping to actually look at, instead of me just saying, I'm going to go in and follow the rules. Like,
yeah,
maybe actually try and say like, well, I can, but why do I not want to?
Because it's uncomfortable. I think if there's anything I want to end on, it's just that these situations are not supposed to be comfortable for us when we haven't done them for a while. Like,
yeah.
Anytime, like I was at a show last night and I used to go to shows all the time and it was part of my identity. And now I just get severe anxiety when I go. And so I ended up there just kind of standing with my partner to the side, looking at everyone around me and feeling very uncomfortable. And I was just thinking, well, of course you're uncomfortable. You haven't done this in a while. Like, we're so afraid of being uncomfortable. But, like, if we can just push through the discomfort for just a little bit, it might become comfortable again. Like, that's what Orion was saying. It's all temporary. And, like, that's been really comforting to me recently because I have been pushing myself out of my comfort zone and not really feeling any results. Like, not seeing any results, not feeling better about it. And so I just want to give up. But, you know, his voicemail is encouraging because it's like, no, it's not going to be uncomfortable forever. Your feelings are not your enemy.
Yeah, because you try it once, it's not going to immediately go from, like, horribly uncomfortable to now it's fine.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get better at roller skating, and I've been roller skating off and on for months, and I'm still terrible, but I don't put any real practice into it. I'm afraid of skating by myself. Like, if I just went and practiced by myself a few days a week, I would be way better, but it's like, what am I afraid of? Am I afraid of falling down? Am I afraid of people looking at me and laughing? Like, that's not going to happen. The only way I'm going to get better at it is just by practicing. And like, imagine that kind of validation, like knowing that you did something even though it was uncomfortable and now you're doing it like a boss.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of self-esteem boost I need.
Yes.
No one else is going to provide it for me. I just got to do it.
Yep.
Same goes for you. Same goes for all of y'all.
Yep.
Do something uncomfortable this week.
Except for Meatball. He's living his best life.
Honestly, yeah. They are so lucky. They don't even realize it. They're not paying rent or anything. All we do is make money for our pets. It's literally why we're alive. On that note, I guess we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about probably some more treatment stories, I think, because it is really relevant to our lives right now. And I feel like, I don't know. Do you feel like it's helpful to talk about before going to treatment?
Yeah. I was trying to hold this off because I was going to say, like, I was going to let you know after what I was thinking for next week.
Might as well let all of them know.
Yes, since we've kept bringing it up, basically, then I might as well say. Because usually we surprise each other with a topic, and I was going to suggest, I believe it is supposed to be my topic week.
Oh, I see. I can't even keep track.
I'm not even positive, but it's definitely a topic week because this is a poll week.
Yes.
But yeah, I was going to suggest that our next week topic, we do treatment stories, and that's why I was going to let you know ahead of time so you could have some good ones. You know, I was thinking just a mix, have things where it was like, this happened and it was terrible, this happened and it was insightful, this happened and it was funny. I have a great funny one.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're on the same page, totally by accident. Look at that. So right. We'll have some treatment stories next week. And until then, we'll just be taking one day at a time.
Yep.
Bye.
Right. Bye.